People who had considered themselves incels, involuntary celibates, but have since had sex. How do you feel looking back at your previous self? I never really considered myself an incel at the time, mostly because I'd never heard the phrase, but I was very incelly in high school. I was the type of person who would hold a door open and then wonder why girls weren't falling into my lap. Turns out high school me wasn't that attractive, and nice isn't a personality. I fell very much into the Chads and Stacy's frame of mind for a while. A lot of things changed really, but mostly I just grew up. It's a super childish view of things and just doesn't take into account that the people around you are, well, people. If someone held a door open for you, you wouldn't throw yourself at them. It's about the maturity in relationships. But seriously, duck high school me, proper punt. We were all punts in high school. Thank you for being one person who admits it. I am so glad I had my teenage years in the late 80s and early 90s before the internet, let alone social media. Back then I couldn't get a date, let alone a girlfriend. I was, to be fair, hardly a catch. Suffering from persistent depressive disorder, former orderly Q ladies, and just generally having problems adapting. I was acknowledged to be a bit weird. I kind of accepted that it was my fault, which was bad for me short term but probably good in the long term for everyone concerned. Ultimately I had to sort myself out, but if I had had access to the sort of incel pooping online around today, I fear I would have lapped it up with a spoon. A very large group of like-minded people telling me it isn't my fault. I can stop moping and start hating? Fantastic. I'm in. I would have been able to celebrate my status instead of reflecting on it and changing it. I'm sure I'd have been more than tempted. Social media has eroded, even destroyed, the concepts of privacy Gen X and before took for granted. For us to be an outsider, to be weird, was something you could do alone and grow out of, if you wanted to, of course. For the later millennials and beyond, even in quarantine, there is no alone, no solitude to reflect. Everything seems to be out there looking for likes and other forms of validation my addled mid-40s brain can't comprehend. Incels are a form of social validation that could not really have existed before social media. To get a network like that going would have been logistically and technically impossible on a scale beyond small outsider cliques in secondary schools. Now they are a movement. I somewhat pity incels because, but for 20 or so years, I could have been one of them. I honestly think social media is allowing the development of a whole Pandora's box of mental illnesses. Some are derivations of previously understood mental illnesses, while others are just being recognized, like gaming addiction. The lack of privacy is something that bothers me too. Like, I'm 31. I grew up in the 90s and early zeros. In those days on the internet, the rule was you didn't share intimate details about your life or even your name, etc., unless you trust them after a long period of time. And even then it was a gray area. Now, people post every innate detail about their lives and careers online, not just for family and friends, but complete strangers to prove of. I'm probably the last generation that grew up without the internet and smartphones being a huge thing. And I'm so grateful. I was a 90s kid, was in college when Facebook was starting. It was a niche college thing at the time. I feel as you do. And while I enjoy Reddit, I never got into other social media. I often wonder, was it really that my formative years were during a better time? Or am I like every other generation that believes the world around them was better yesterday than today? I wouldn't have been an incel, but I do worry a lot for my children. There was something to being able to go through teenage angst with some solitude, putting on music that moved you and believing yourself to be unique in your hurt, pushing through those years of growth and development, and the special feeling when you found and bonded with someone else with the same feelings with you, in the real world. Forget the angst, just being able to go out in the world with some anonymity, no cameras in every person's hand, no cell phones to be in constant contact. In hindsight it was a luxury. You know, I don't know if this'll be buried, but I can actually share something valuable here. TLDR. It comes down to a lack of respect and ignorance to self-awareness. I did consider myself mostly an incel. Maybe, more of a nice guy, but to my core I believed that girls were only after the chads and douchebags. It was from the ages of 12-18, so a lot through my formative years. Here's the mindset. You've never had any awareness of the fact that girls don't indeed chase doucher bags, because that's all you've ever looked for. Whenever you see a pretty girl who says she is in a relationship, you immediately assume that her boyfriend is a terrible person. Though, not because he is, but because you yourself assume that you would just be so much better off with her than any other person. You won't see your own flaws, so you'll assume the worst of the guy. The truth is, it comes down to major insecurity issues and a lack of any male relationships. If you don't have male friends, you're going to assume that only the cocky guys get the girls. In reality, they are displaying charisma and confidence, something that is very attractive. Everyone knows this. It's lack of awareness. It's easier to say that you yourself are too short, too ugly, too untalented, etc. than to admit that you have a crappy personality with little to no charisma. You won't find a happy, charming incel. If I could have gone back to myself and say, here's the deal. Girls don't look for one particular thing in a dude. They want someone to be comfortable around. They don't want you to praise them as some higher being. They wanted to be treated with respect. But most importantly, they don't exist to have sex with you. They don't even exist to be your friend. They don't owe you anything. No one does. Just because you like them doesn't mean they have to like you. Don't try to sleep with girls by being their friend. Be grateful that someone sees any quality in your person for them to want to be around you at all. Be grateful that someone wants to be your friend. You are shallow and you only care about looks. You saying it's about personality is all bull poopy. That's it. I was a young, angry kid. I'm glad I'm the man I am today. I've had a lot of confidence issues which went away as I grew older. I went through many edgy phases, and it took all of these mistakes to learn them. So I feel empathy for incels because they don't know any better. They don't know just how wrong they are. Because admitting faults and self-improvement takes time and effort, blaming and hating girls does not. Instead of hating girls, my only wish is that I started on self-improvement sooner. I suppose I was an incel from 23-27 after leaving the military. I was depressed, underweight, socially isolated. I never got fat or super into gaming as is stereotypical. Just worked a lot, hung out with my dog, smoked way too much weed, and just sort of forgot how to interact with women. Which was probably for the best. Most of my relationships prior to 23 were unhealthy at worst, meaningless at best. Ending that era of my life was a long struggle that took concerted effort towards trying to be more positive and social. One big event was buying and learning to ride a motorcycle at 27 sort of shocked me out of my routine. Opened my eyes to the fact that life was not a downhill slide from the adrenaline-filled days of 1822. That new experiences were waiting to be had. Eventually I met a woman that I just couldn't bear to have the usual flirt until I awkwardly distanced myself experience with. I forced myself to not to my mind wander when we talked. I powered through all anxiety to call and text her daily. I even eventually would do crazy stuff like get dressed up nice and go to dinner with her. Not something I could have ever seen myself doing at one point. So I'm married now. Still have some issues, but very happy. So I'd say nothing to me. Just gotta live through it, kid. Finally my time to shine. Not sure if I should be proud of that. I found my first incel forum at 13, even though it didn't have that name. But the ideologies were the same. I was miserable back then, didn't have many friends. My grades were poop and I got bullied a lot. This made me spend most of my time inside playing video games and hating life. I hated everyone because all of my experiences with people were being bullied. I started being bullied at 4 and it didn't stop until the middle of high school. The forums were full of people thinking the same. It made me feel secure, like I was right. I didn't have to walk the hard way to improve myself. They told me I could just let go. Nobody will ever love you, so why try? You are a social reject, so why try? So I stopped showering, stopped eating, stopped caring for myself. I let myself go because these groups told me no matter how hard you try, you will fail. I became jealous of people being more popular than me. Jealous of my sister because she was so pretty and accepted herself. She had a boyfriend, but all girls hated me. At the time I didn't see that. Would I have just showered, girls wouldn't have been disgusted by me. I hated immigrants, gay people, women, handsome guys, everyone I saw as more accomplished than me. It was a hard time getting out of this mindset, but eventually I made it, turned my grades around, made some friends and went to therapy. I even have a boyfriend now. Oh, the irony. When I see incels or people like that, I just can't hate them. They are in pain and struggling and need help. Depression is one hell of beast and some people lash out in anger. So when I look back at my old self, I really just want to give him a hug and tell him everything is going to be okay. I had this condition called phimosis, which meant my foreskin didn't retract. So if I had ever tried to have sex, it would have been really painful and probably ripped it. Because of that, I never allowed myself to get into situations that might get sexual. And even though I was purposely avoiding them, part of me still felt like there was nothing to avoid and no one was interested anyway. When I was 18, for the very first time a girl made it known she was interested in me, but to be honest, even if I could have done anything, I wasn't interested in her anyway. 19. I used Tinder for some reason. Match a girl, start talking to her, and it's awesome. We really like each other, but I could never arrange to meet up for fear of it turning sexual, and I was too embarrassed to tell anyone my circumstances. Inevitably, she gets bored of nothing happening, moves on. I'm heartbroken. 20. Nothing really happened here. 21. Meet another girl on Tinder. Pretty much the same situation as when I was 19. We like each other, she gets bored, goes for someone else. I'm heartbroken. 23. Me and girl from work start getting close. I get into my first ever relationship with her. A month or so it turns sexual and I let her know what's going on and that I need to fix it. She's cool with it. About a year after my initial doctor's appointment, I get a circumcision at 24. 2 months later we lose our virginities to each other. 25. Still with her now. Been just over 2 years. I remember when I first found the incel community, it was actually a pretty helpful place. It was more of a support group for people who were unattractive, socially awkward, there wasn't any of this nice guy, give sex bullpoopy. Everyone knew why they were involuntarily celibate, and just wanted to vent frustrations and get support. It was really good for my confidence. Then the toxic masculinity started to creep in and took right over. As everyone knows, I fell on the incel line of being not unattractive, but personality wise, all I did was play video games. I didn't have anything interesting about my life, and so women just weren't interested in me, and I never put myself into situations to meet people. New job with great people, I started to do different things. Played hockey for the first time at 30. Joined the group for a couple of traveling tournaments where we got absolutely Vegas type plastered for weekends in different cities. Job is very much a hangout and chat type job. Security. So talking with the women on the team on the regular starts removing the air of mystique I had built around them. Got my motorcycle license and did a solo trip across the states from Canada to the Mexican border and back that same year. Started doing Tough Mudders, buying a season pass and traveling to any of the ones I could drive to. Then I got Tinder and just started going on dates. Had a few good, few bad, and then met my wife. All in all, I ultimately blame a World of Warcraft addiction that held me back in my early 20s to my late 20s and just missed out on those socially formative years. You are the kind of person I wanted to answer the question. There are a few here that have said that they were actually active in the incel community and have since left. I think I'm going to compile them and publish them because they are testaments that need to be read. I used to be the creepy ass weirdo who, by the time I graduated, had asked every single girl out. I literally had no idea what I was doing wrong. I was practicing all the classic southern gentleman things that I was supposed to, yet having no luck. Think I'm lady, but only slightly less cringy. It wasn't until I got to college and went on a period of self-discovery that I knew the error of my ways. The first, and most important, concept that I learned was that women aren't sex dispensaries that you deposit nice coins into and get paspas in return. They have to choose you. I still kept doing nice things for girls because that's the way I was raised, but I removed my expectations for getting anything in return. The second concept was making myself attractive, and it was a lot easier than I thought it would be. A nice basic buzz cut suddenly turned my oily mop of hair into a clean, presentable style. Went clean shaven on facial hair too. because all I could grow was a pilly pubic hair looking ass beard. Got a benzoyl peroxide solution to start working on the acne. Marching band was my form of exercise to stay fit and avoid the freshman 15. It's amazing how the problems we create for ourselves can get in our own way. I was a being of pure hatred. I always thought it was someone else's fault, even though I have had sex since that time. I think it's important to know that having sex isn't what vindicates you. Inceldom is a state of mind which requires strength and sometimes outside guidance to overcome. One of my friends essentially gave me a proverbial slap to the face on the subject and told me exactly what to do and how to become a more better person. In conclusion, I look back with regret and sorrow for all the people I hurt and made uncomfortable, because I know there are many. Edit. Thanks so much for the positive response. I've received many questions about what my friend did to help me. My friend was and is someone I looked up to, so I suppose that is an influence, but basically the thing that I needed to understand was that the fact that girls who I was constantly being rejected by were just people living their best life, and me whining about it wouldn't change their preferences, so instead I worked on being happy without needing a GF and just letting it happen when it happens. There's always something to be said for talking to your friends, taking the time out of your day to listen to their troubles and offering advice. It really helped me, so I encourage you to do the same. I was involuntarily celibate in that I wanted to have sexual relationships, but never met anyone interested. I didn't put any effort in, so it was kinda my fault. My lifestyle just didn't lend itself to meeting people, so it was hard. When I finally did get out there and start having relationships, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I realized that I had previously felt like an incomplete person because of my inability to connect with anyone, and that was holding me back from other things in life. Like I thought nothing else was worth pursuing because I hadn't properly entered adulthood yet. I kinda wish I'd just got on with it and pursued my other interests a bit more. I don't know why I had to wait. Maybe it was depression relating to me being lonely. Edit. Thinking about it a bit more, I put off dating for a long time because I thought I had to have my life in order first, which was why I waited until I hit some other life milestones. Once I hit those, I realized I had no excuse and finally started online dating. First one ghosted me, which hit me pretty hard after doing something positive for myself. Second one we really hit it off, and that's when I turned into a different person. It's worth the effort. I was a virgin at 2021 but wanted to have sex sooner. There was some bitterness in my heart towards women. I got on with working, playing rugby and not being fat ass, and it turned around. Learned to have a conversation, not just trying to chat someone up or show the world how super I was. Married, 2 children, doing okay. Oh god. High school me wore fedoras and believed my superior intellect and science-based social theories were too much for everyone, and that I was really a James Bond type with my knowledge of various fields. Turns out I was gay as duck, but so deep in the closet my zip code was in Narnia. Not really that smart in anything but too ADHD to focus past basic knowledge of anything, and in a desperate need of a new wardrobe.